That really doesn't matter, because if we're cutting funding, the department head has to decide how to use that funding within the department. He has to give increases to the people that stay, whatever department, but you can have less people to meet the budget. So nothing's sacred. No, if you have a budget of, I don't know, $400,000, and you have union contract that says everybody's getting a 2% wage increase, you have to follow the union contract, give them a 2% wage increase. But if you have to cut $40,000, then you look at your staffing saying, okay, I'm gonna have one less staff member. Everybody that stays will get the increase under the contract. So you're not breaking any contracts, you're not going against contract, you're just taking a cut like everybody else. And to say that because it's a union contract, we can't touch a department, I don't think it's fair across the board. Let me back up. I don't think the whole budget's fair, because I think we're hurting people. But I think if we're gonna do it, we need to be fair across the board and not single out certain people. That's my comment.
I'm not disagreeing with you, John, but my feeling is department heads know more so than we do as a group where they best can cut and function to survive the following 12 months of the next year. If you don't allow them to do their expertise and put the money where it's going to do the greatest good in a lean budget like this, I think we're defeating the purpose of department heads. Department heads, they know their budget, they know what they have to try to get for goals and expectations, and now it's going to be even harder too, but I do believe we have to have confidence in our department heads to make the cuts appropriately so it's deemed where it will get the most bang for our buck. And I agree with you with the fairness, but sometimes this whole budget is not fair.
I agree on that.
You know, I'm sorry, but I do think if we're going to survive, we have to try to accomplish some of our goals, and our department heads are going to be the best to do that, and we should leave the money to them where it's going to go and do the greatest good. That's my comment.
I think we should be clear of letting them know, though, we expect them to look at everything, including themselves.
I agree with that. I think that we should, as the Board of Selectmen, we give each department the amount of money that we're able to give them, and their department heads for a reason, and they're able to manage that money and budget that money, and I don't think that, given all of the cuts that they've made already and all the sacrifices that they've made already, that we should, on top of that, say, and you have to take a pay cut. I think that they know best where their money is spent, and chances are they're going to be the ones that pick up the slack for all of the services that they just cut. And I guess I disagree. I don't think that they should be.
That's fine. I mean, I think we all agree the whole budget is way too low, but. Okay, that's all I have on that one.
Chief, we just finished the police department piece, but did you have anything to add?
Has anything changed?
No.
That you know about? Then I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Alrighty, so that's the police department we just wrapped up. Let's see if we can go down some more small things down at the bottom. We have let's see, administrative assistant wages. So the position that assists me in the office is only going to be about half as what it was before. That will cut down some fees there. Let's see. The town accountant, let's see, that's not there. If you go somewhere along here, assistant accountant wages all the way up at the top, it says $17,479. That's a cut to the assistant accountant wages. That actually means that Joyce will be taking 1 furlough day a month in order to help with that reduction. The treasurer collector wages, this is for the 2 folks who work in that office as well. They're dropped down to $47,000, so it's the same thing there. Town clerk assistant wages, same gig. There'll be a furlough day somewhere involved, $16,695. On the next page.
Heather, can you just go back? Because
Yep.
the finance committee, especially with new members, the reserve fund's being cut from 35 to 10.
Yes.
Okay, so you're only getting $10,000, and that's where everybody goes towards the end of the year. So we just got to make it clear there's no more going there.
No, well, we didn't, if you notice what we've done on a lot of these things is a lot of departments have the good idea where if they have something that's coming up in 3 years, where we have an OPEB study or we have a triennial evaluation, we would start putting money aside every year And in 3 years, we'd have enough money. So we'd put 4,000 aside this year, 4,000 aside next year, 4,000 aside the year after, and then we have enough to pay for the study. This year, we don't have enough money to do that. We don't have the extra to be able to put that money aside. We don't have the money to put the money in the savings account. So even with the reserve account, we don't have the money to put the money aside. If you continue down there, there's a lot of small departments here. I don't know if there's any other ones the Board of Selectmen wishes me, we've already been through the fire department, EMS, and general discussion, but if there's anything else you wish me to discuss, I'm happy to.
Could you just comment on the school textbooks, just not familiar?
I don't know, it's always been 0.
It's always been zero.
No, it used to be 18, I don't know why it's always, it's been 18.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's first year 0?
Vicky here?
Yeah.
First year is 0.
Before it
Vickie's not
was
here.
18.
I think it hasn't been spent in the past.
oh, I don't know.
No,
No, in the
it's
past,
in the past as well.
well, according to the town accountant, because we went over that, it was in there, and Mr. Kilson, who was accountant before, would transfer in the last at least 3 or 4 years, money at the end of the year, not for books or anything. Books weren't really taken out of that account, is what the information she gave us. It was miscellaneous stuff, and then there was one whole year that none of it was spent out of there. So I think the books are being bought out of the general school budget.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the plumbing, but certainly.
Yeah,
It still shows an $18,000 balance in the last report that was issued.
right, and that last year wasn't spent.
Is this the time for a question?
John, you have a question for
I
me
do,
so
yeah.
early?
I'm wondering, this is my third time, and I know I'm late, and I'm sorry, but is the same scrutiny on the revenue side, and is there a handout for that? So how is it that we got where we are from a revenue, there's two sides to a budget, right? The money you get and the money you spend. Is there the same scrutiny on that? Because that becomes part of the selling when you're talking about overrides. Here's how we got where we are, and here's what didn't come true that somehow came true in those other years.
At this very moment in time, I wasn't asked to look that closely into the revenue, but before we move forward with Prop 2.5, that's something we will add into our information. If you have a specific question, we could look
Well, I
into
guess
it for you, John.
I mean, I sort of do, right? Before you go forward with slash and burn, you might want to give it the scrutiny, because.
I believe they've already gone through it quite a bit. Donna, do you have any information on John's question?
The Finance Committee had already, and Vicki had already come up with the revenue numbers based on cherry sheet
Yep.
projections
Yep.
and projected tax collections, and, it's already been,
I'm not doubting that it does, I'm just
Yeah.
asking if there
The
was. a
numbers
handout
we
that
brought up
went
the
with
last
it.
couple of weeks were the numbers we
right.
put all together with the assessors and Donna and Vicky and all that.
Okay.
It was
So
40
what's the miss on revenue?
Well, it was about $1 million, $1,080,000 we started off on budget. We'd really like to see our budgets at this level versus the revenue coming in.
So the requests are what the requests were, but from a budget standpoint, is the income next year some number lower than it was last year?
No.
It's not lower, but it's the way we're funding it. You have to remember this, free cash last year was $377,000, this year is $68,000. So we have that much, we've gotten to the habit of spending free cash, and we've always said it's gonna come back to bite us, and
Sure.
here we are.
That's what I'm wondering, so it's
Yeah.
free cash, it's, what is it for getting cars? It's
New growth is down too,
New
John.
growth.
Yeah,
is-
new growth,
is
and
way down.
and what's the fourth one now?
The fire department, we took from the ambulance fund, $150,000 last year, we're taking 50 this year. So all those together came up to over $500,000.
And the other one was, that was always a big number, was vocational tuition.
Right, that
I think
one was
we're.
a couple
I think-
$100,000,
I think it should be, at least I'm hearing the kids have either received their acceptance letters or they should have, so. If that was a big number this year compared to
830,000.
years past, like by a couple $100,000,
Yeah,
I think.
830.
$79,000.
So we should be watching to see if those numbers work.
So the request went up and the revenue collapsed.
Yeah.
John, you were on finance for years. I went back and looked at the budgets from 2005, for what we funded. From 2005 to this year's budget, 18% increase over 10 years. Where gasoline prices have gone up 60%. So I think we're just seeing the
It's all
tightening.
caught up, yeah.
It's all caught up to this
It's all caught up.
point where
I'm
insurance.
not arguing that there
I'm just trying to-
that there shouldn't be a correction, I'm just wondering
Yeah.
if everything is well documented so that when you go in to make the case, you can say here's why, because that's what we have.
I think it's just a culmination of things, sort of like you said, catching up to this point.
The other thing too, John, is budget busters are these fixed costs, which you're well of, like health insurance, like retirement funds. These have gone up, school vote went up. These are things that we don't have any control of. And you have to have these in order to function.
Any other questions? Yes?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Rivera Road. There's these small little ones, but I don't know like why, if you could explain more
Sure.
about these, like, animal inspector salary, 3,000,
It's a stipend.
and then the, like, what's a health agent, what do they?
The health agent is our,
Wage and
okay.
health expenses, I mean, that alone is like $40,000, so I'm just curious.
Sure.
if you-
Our health inspector is required, works under the Board of Health, and we're required to have one by law. If we do not have a health agent, what that means is we pay a monthly fine of a certain amount of money per month to cover the fact that we don't have one. I imagine that would mean that the state steps in or covers us in the meantime. Our health agent is the person, right now it's Adam Kinney? Kinney? That's how you say his last name. Who is actually leaving us next week. It's his last week, and he's leaving us for another job. But what he does is he goes out and he makes sure that all the restaurants you eat at are safe, that they're not serving you anything, you know, that they shouldn't be serving you, that everything is running up to code, and pretty much enforces Board of Health regulations. The amount he's being paid is already one of the lowest in the state. If we lower that anymore, we're afraid that we won't be able to get anyone to actually take the position itself. The health expenses are actually just mostly for their paperwork, permits, and, you know, mileage, so that they can go out of the office and actually go inspect the restaurants down the street, OPA, et cetera, et cetera. The health administrative person, who actually split between two line items, it's split between the Board of Health and also split between the building inspector. That is one individual. It used to be Bianca. It's now, right now we just have an emergency fill-in person, but the position has been posted. It's only for about 18 hours a week, so it's only part-time. It doesn't cost us benefits. What this person does is they maintain all the records and files for both the Board of Health and the building commissioner or building inspector, however you'd like to put it, office, including, you know, gas and plumbing and electrical inspector. They take all the phone calls, do all the correspondence, and do all the paper and filing. They're actually one of the busiest, two of the busiest offices in the entire town. They just don't usually have enough time to keep up with all the stuff that's going on over there.
I'm just surprised that our town, how many restaurants do we have? It seems to be more of a regional sort of position than.
Yeah, but the other thing too is the building inspector has to go out and do all the septic tanks and inspections. It's not just the restaurants. He's got to make sure if there's any code violations, he's got to enforce them, he's got to go to court. That's just some of the things that come off the top of my head, but
Perk test.
believe me, if the $40,000 spending on him, if we were going to save it, it would cost us a lot more to deal with the fines and also having people, you know, getting sick. You know, all you need is one outbreak of hepatitis or something like that. It could be a major issue.
Any other questions? Comments? Yes, ma'am.
I was just saying, I think this is an example that we need to stress to people in town, because there are a lot of so-called hidden things that we must do mandated by the state. And I don't think people realize that, but this is a prime example. It's a health issue. It's an important mandate. The state wouldn't have mandated it, but we're all responsible, and these are the expenses. And I think we need to talk about all of these things that every department in the town. There are a lot of mandated things that state require us to do, and we'd like to maybe cut it, but use more things if we can, because the state mandates it. So I think we need to share that when we're doing 2.5 people involved.
I think we've seen 10 years of cutting, is what we're looking at.
Right. I agree with you.
Yes. I mean, it was 1 year we had the budget from 1 year to next year was minus 2%. The budget actually went down in 2009 from the prior year. Any other comments from finance? John, any other comments?
No.
All right, moving on, you want to move on to the warrants?
Do you want to move on to the Prop 2.5 budget?
Sure.
That would be a no, but I'd like to
All
anyway.
right.
All right, so we also prepared a second budget, which is the FY15 Prop 2.5 budget that's directly next to the first budget on your sheets. It's the one on the right. And this budget is based on the concept of having a Proposition 2.5 override vote and the override vote passing at the amount of $1 million. With the $1 million, what we did is, based on prior discussions from the Board of Selectmen, the board had talked about, if this does pass, we need to be fiscally responsible and we need to put money in our rainy day savings accounts. So we need to put money in our capital stabilization, our operating stabilization, and also put money in our OPEB as we're required. OPEB stands for, Donna?
Other post-employee benefits,
Which is our long-term retirement?
retirement health insurance, basically.
Okay. So that is something that we sought to do. In doing so, we actually, before we started adding the extra money in, we took out $100,000 for capital, $100,000 for operating, and $40,000 for OPEB. We could have taken out more, but we would have had to make bigger cuts, and we tried to avoid those. So with the FY15 Prop 2.5 budget, you see here, essential numbers. The very bottom is the fixed numbers, the same as before, anything under that deep dark line. And essentially, most of our cuts were they were very minor. We tried to keep all of the salary increases because one of the things we had talked about before is if we did in fact get the Prop 2.5 past that, we'd want to be able to at least provide the opportunity to the non-union employees to get the 2% increase in salary, just like all of the union employees currently get in their contracts. So that was included in this. If you go through, you'll see some of the small adjustments that were made. The one adjustment we did make to the school, it was not huge. It was, let's see, I think we brought them to 4 million even. I think they were 4,069,000. So I think we did cut them 69,000. But considering the fact that in one budget we're talking about 3.6 million, the other budget we're talking about 4 million, that's a much better number. We also have other cuts that were still minor here. You're not going to really be able to see them too much on this sheet of paper because you don't have other things to compare them to. We did cut a couple things. We cut police just a little bit. We cut highway just a little bit. We pretty much went through all the departments evenly, cut a little bit, and tried to make it even throughout. I don't know if there's any specific questions. I'd be happy to answer.
I'm sorry, could you point us to the lines that you funded for reserves? Are they in this budget or would they?
Oh, you won't see them. They're imaginary. They do exist, John, but they're not on the sheet of paper you have.
Yeah, they'd be on the
So
revenue
it's-
side
It's
probably.
capital would be 100,000, operating would be 100,000, and OPEB would be 40,000. So the remainder of that is 760,000 that goes into the budget. So that would bring our balance up to $15,308,626, which I believe is at the bottom of your numbers down here somewhere.
It is,
Okay, that's where that came from. Any other questions?
I've got one question, because going backwards, and I guess it's for the Norris School Committee. The cut is about $300,000 to Norris, is that what we're projecting?
And the FY15, yes.
What is the school committee? I mean, I know you were involved in all that. Is that something you're able to do if Prop 2.5 doesn't?
Well, you don't really have much of a choice, right? What do you mean? Is it something that we?
Well, I mean, there's other ways to mix the budget up and take from other departments and all that stuff. This is
Yeah,
one cut. I'm just wondering what will happen.
Well, we meet tomorrow night, so to the extent that there would be specifics that we would talk about, an implementation strategy, more on that tomorrow. From a personnel standpoint, teachers average about 50,000, paraprofessionals average about 20,000. There are other groups of dollars that we would look at. Based on one of my questions for tonight was, what's the timing? What do you think the timing is on the Prop 2.5? So do we look at it and say, Obviously with the school choice, I know that's of interest, right? So what would be the strategy with that so that you bridge yourself to the answer on Prop 2.5 without behaving like it didn't pass before you even asked, right? So it's kind of hard to repair what you undo. So what, from a timing standpoint, how long before you know on the override and then you implement the answer one way or another?
Well, it's
After you get
a
it.
two-pronged approach to it. You know, you gotta
Yeah.
go to town meeting, you get the authorization to do 2.5.
Understood, right?
So, right off
Probably
the bat,
60
we'll know
60
that
days.
day whether it's a yay or a nay.
Right.
Okay, if it's a yes, then we have to schedule the election.
Right, based on history, we probably get to the election part, but is that 45 days, is it 60 days, is it, whatever it is, it's, I don't know if you've already got that scheduled.
Well, the sooner the better, so if we have to make the cuts, it's earlier in
Right.
the year and not into the second quarter like that one year when the state cut us 11%.
I didn't know from the rules standpoint if it needed to be so long after the annual or the special town meeting that it was voted at, or how long the ramp time to an election is.
You know, I'm not sure.
There's a time frame, but I don't know what it is.
So that's sort of, so when you're thinking, if you look at school choice and using more of that than you would otherwise to get you to that vote, and then you take actions after the results of that vote, it's important to know how long that time is, right?
So do you think we should have a special town meeting after the vote?
No, I think you should have no,
We have
as
to
of
go
the
back.
annual.
The annual's actually coming up on, let's see, 20?
Annual, yeah, that's weeks away, right? But if you need 60 days before you can have the ballot, right, then looking at the funding, and the budget doesn't start till July, so you've got some time in that anyway, right? You don't know how long you need to make,
John, I'd say the end of July, 1st of August is where we're looking at for an election.
so it's probably a month then in the new budget.
I guess my question goes beyond that, because the bridge funding is easy, relatively, because you got some school choice money. What happens if Prop 2.5 doesn't change? What's the vision?
That's the hard question, right?
Yeah. And that's what I don't think we know, looking at the budget that is structured now. I guess that's my part about not liking this thing, because I think we're hammering one area that we can't afford to hammer.
And basically, that's what it comes down to. If you have a month, then I can see where you would fund yourself whole for that month, so to speak, so that you got to the answer. And then you have 11 months in which to enact whatever it is that needed to be enacted.
Is it
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to create that
Right.
fear, uncertainty, and doubt now if you don't know what it is.
So is it fair to say that the school costs might be a little less in July than, say, October? Because, the kids
They
are
would be
out.
less in October than they were in July.
But I mean, just in general, though, for a month-to-month basis, so if we had to fund the full month of July before the election was
I see what
done.
you're saying, but, so what you're saying, the expenses for the school,
Yeah.
there's.
It's a little less.
It's spread out over the, yeah,
Okay.
but you know what, it's to run the
Okay.
building, so it costs, we don't air conditioning it anyway, right? And we're not heating it in July, but the payroll, the fixed costs are 8% or so, right? So
John,
it's
one
spread out
question I
generally
have-
over 12 months.
One question I have in regards to the wages is, your contract obligations, are you required to give them a pay slip before the end of the year? I think you
There was a
are.
reason that we did in the past, and I think it was in one of those 2.5 years, I'm not sure exactly on
I
that.
think I might be wrong, but
Yeah.
you need to check with Jurgensen on that, because I think there's a time frame. They have to be given a pay slip, otherwise, they come on the payroll.
Yeah, what we've done in the past, I think, I think the last time we went through this, I was on finance, but it was pink slip went to everyone. And that's whether you know what you're gonna do or not know what you're gonna do, and I'm not arguing that we would, right?
No, I just remember we had that issue
You
before.
know the thing with that, Ed, 'cause I believe, and it has to be checked, but I think then they can collect unemployment, and then our unemployment costs go up.
Well, it doesn't matter, we don't.
That's gonna happen.
You gotta pay 100%.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen no matter what, yeah.
Yeah,
David, you got a
if we
question?
end up doing it, yes.
David, you got a question?
No, that was my point. I mean, factoring the cost of letting people walk and the cost of unemployment, what really is the resulting savings except deterioration of services in school.
I thought you had to hand too, school's budget is 95% wages.
I'm not, and I don't speak for our board tonight, but based on, and I've been on the board 5 or 6 years now, based on our previous action, and again, I'm not speaking for the board, but we will look to protect, or have looked in the past to protect the environment, right? So to the extent that we maintain the same number of teachers, the same number of classrooms, and then we look to administration, we look to those other kinds of things to get us through rather than changing the environment. Because it's the environment that makes it attractive. Some would say it's part of the engine of the town, and that would be the first place, looking to cut personnel would not be the first place we could go to. So I didn't mean to indicate by putting dollar figures that would be our first way. Our first way would be, relatively confident, would be how do we get to the bridge to understand how the question gets answered, and then what will we do around the edges, right? And then where would we need to take it?
You get back to us after the meeting and with some thoughts maybe?
That's all we have, right? Sure.
All right, any other questions?
I mean, it's not just one more. You say get back, it's not the different. We get the budget and then we have, town meeting ends, the budget gets approved, there's a question mark, right? And our work in the budget, we get a proposal for the budget, we bring to you with the request. There's a number that we get from the town, and we go and we usually sign off on our budget in between town meeting and the 1st of July.
I was thinking more if you came up with any ideas that we didn't know about.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes, miss. Yes.
So I'm Linda Barasek, I'm a teacher at Norris, and I'm speaking not on behalf of Norris, but as a taxpayer here. If you're looking at $300,000, that's 6 teachers. That is classroom sizes that are currently 18 to 20 kids, going up to 25 to 32 students. I don't know if that's the type of environment we want our children and our grandchildren to be in. That's a very difficult classroom. Is that learning? And is that the environment that we have in our small town?
Our second budget is our Prop 2.5 budget. Our Prop 2.5 budget is based on the Prop 2.5 override that we are asking the town for. The reason we're asking the town for this is because we'd like to maintain these services. We'd like to maintain the classroom sizes in the school. We'd like to maintain all of the police officers working on proactive service and not reactive service. We'd like to maintain highway department being available all week and being able to continue with their services. We'd like to maintain the ability for the library not only to be accredited, but also to be able to be open longer hours and to be able to offer more services and not to have to fundraise for 50% of their books every year because we can't completely fund them. We'd like to be able to offer the ability for folks to be in this building longer and to provide services to all of the residents. But unless we can get Prop 2.5 to pass and get the support of all the residents in the community, including the support of the schools, the parents, the teachers, everyone who this affects, we're going to be stuck in this situation. We have been working as departments all together in department head meetings. We worked last week. We're going to be meeting again this week. We usually only have a monthly department head meeting, but we're meeting every week right now until we complete Prop 2.5. We've been working with other communities and towns that have had recent Prop 2.5s that have passed. Arlington, Mass. had one in 2011 that passed. We're also working with Shrewsbury and other communities. Any information we have. We're working right now on putting together fact sheets for each of our departments to show what current services we'd be able to offer, wouldn't be able to offer based on our current state of our budget in FY15, as well as the services we'd be able to reinstate with the Prop 2.5 if it were to be passed, and also things we'd be able to offer in addition to that with the Prop 2.5. These things are very, very instrumental, including the schools, and schools are at the heart of everybody. But unless we get everyone on board, residents, schools, teachers, everyone, parents, the elderly, the young, everyone, working class, those who don't work, those who are interested in the outdoors, those who are interested in the library, everyone on the same page and united front on this, we're going to be stuck in the situation where we're going to be having these cuts in the school. where we're gonna be having these cuts, and you're not gonna be able to come into town hall and have someone to be there and help you. Where you're gonna be looking for a patrolman to go by and check out that person who's speeding by your street every day. But he's not gonna be available because we don't have the money to be able to pay him for those services.
What is the average cost increase on a $250,000 home per quarter? Did we figure that out once?
We did a couple weeks ago. Donna, do you remember? We don't have Vicky tonight. We feel at a loss without Vicky.
Something dollars.
That was on a $500,000. $50,000 home, but for a $500,000 override.
The $1.77 per thousand.
So it's for $1 million?
No.
$1 million is a dollar, is a dollar.
So $1.76 per mil. So whatever your house is worth.
Per thousand.
Per
Per
thousand.
thousand. Yeah. So for the average family in Southampton, you're looking at about $300 a month. And-
Oh,
No,
no,
a year.
that's not right.
A year, right, $300 a year. So if you have kids in school, like I do, if you have a low income, like we do, if you don't live in a $500,000 house, and you're looking at $300 a year, that's one Friday night that you don't order pizza in order to save these services. You have to look at it that way. And you can't look at it like, oh, they're raising my taxes, because that's not it. You have to really put it in terms that people understand. And the only way that this is gonna work is if the people that it affects, which is all of us, go out and vote. That's the only way this is gonna work. And you have to tell your friends, and you have to talk about it. And I know that sometimes it's taboo to talk about politics when you're at the baseball game, but guess what? If you don't, we're gonna have some serious problems.
Any other comments from the select board? Jackie?
No. Thank you.
Finance? Any other comments on finance?
Another comment, I'm gonna have,
Yeah, where is it? I
I've
have
been
one
through
on
the
my
budgets for
phone.
many years, and we've never had any money, never. Last year, we thought we had $500,000, and a week before we were setting the budget, we were, I won't say surprised, but we had to come up with $500,000 of that free cash we thought we were gonna have for the Hampshire Regional, to meet the 4-town commitment. And over the years, if we don't start addressing these fundings for the department in the best way we can, and right now, we've exhausted every avenue of revenue. We can sell property. We've looked at a lot of avenues to increase revenue side of the issue. The point is, the government over the last 10 years have cut local aid. Find that they level fund your local aid at $450,000, but if it's there for 10 years, that $450,000 doesn't buy what it did the first year, 10 years down the road. And we've been cut on local aid to the tune of 18 and 20% some years, and we haven't got it back. And they always talk about putting it in there, but when it comes down to it, it doesn't come here. Local aid is hurt us because we got dependent on it 15, 20 years ago, and we can't come back from it when they take it away from us, because we have no other revenue stream to go after it and offset those monies with. We are not an affluent town to the sense that we have a very high tax rate. I don't think our tax rate is very high compared to surrounding towns. I think that what we pay right now is a lot in some people's minds, and I think people on fixed incomes, it's an awful lot. But the choice is between, do you want to see us going back to what we have, 30 people in the classroom, having 3 people in the highway department when you got 85 miles of road, when 10 years before you had only 40, you know? Things have grown, things are going up. There's no inflation factor on any state aid that we ever get, but we have to live with inflation, and that's what's been killing us. I'm hoping that, you know, the override goes through and we can solve this one forever. But if it doesn't go through, can you imagine what's going to be next year and the year after that? You know? It's not going to be just trying to make things work. You're going to talk about losing departments. You got to stand your ground and start thinking about, you know, your quality of life that you want. Some people want the fire department, some people want the fire and police department, some people want their plows plowed first thing in the morning. It's not gonna be the same when things are cut. Okay, it's not gonna be the same at all.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, and I am glad that the select board is thinking in terms of how to sell this override, how to explain it to the public, and I'd like to say again, you've got to also remind them what will happen to the property values should town services be decimated, and they will be in these current budgets.
Any last comments from department heads? Boyd?
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. Speaking of what Linda Summers says, and going off on psychology of the article for the 2.5% override, there was discussion last week about putting it before the budget. Every moderator I spoke to, every research I've done feels it's psychologically better to put it after the budget. So I'd like to hear some conversation.
I had a question. Is it possible to make it one and not one or the other, or is it possible to give a whole presentation and then vote on those? Because if you give one and you say, okay, now let's pass it, and then you move to the next one, someone might change their vote. So is it possible to, before we start, do this, what we just did today? Here's what we have, and this is what you get. And if
Going back to what is going to be the budget and what's going to be the 2.5% override on the warrant. That's
Well, Robert, tell me if I'm right or wrong. If we have the budget we have tonight with the cuts,
yes,
that's the omnibus budget,
yes.
all right, the override passes, we'll have to have another meeting to change those numbers, am I right?
You can do it.
We'll have to have another town meeting to come back to reinsert
We'll
those
have
new
to have
numbers.
the election for the 2.5% override.
So whether you have one or the other, you're gonna come back.
That's what I was thinking, you would have to come back for another, another
That's
special.
I mean, I remember
I was hoping we
we
could
have
put
to
both
have a
of them on
balanced
there.
budget.
We've never
If
been
this
there, so we
happens,
never had
Oh,
that.
we've been there using
Oh,
teachers.
way back.
Yeah, we've been there. Bill remembers it, I remember it.
All right.
We had to come back and rebalance the budget.
Yeah.
But we can't have a contingency budget in case. Two and a half?
No. I'm talking, all the budgets, all the line items are gonna be addressed if the override goes through. No, one way or the other.
I think you're right, Ed. I think the easiest thing to do is to pass the budget with the cuts.
Yeah.
Hope to then have an article in the town meeting warrant that talks about a 2.5 override for the amount that we talked about. And then have the election. If the override then passes, then we could have a special.
No, I'm just, I'm
I think
not
that's the
sure if
most
this
logical
cast
way to
in
do
stone,
it.
but on the other hand too, you could do the other way. If the override question passes, you can put the override budget in there, pass that, but if it fails, you gotta come back and cut those budgets.
Well, I was thinking with John.
It doesn't matter
Well,
which way
the
you do
over-
it. Am I right?
The override's currently, the override is currently in the budget, in the warrant as an article. It's a contingent proposition override. So in other words, if it fails, it just it just disappears. It goes bye-bye. So as long as we have the other budget already approved and in place, that one takes over as the dominating budget.
The one with the 6% cut.
Yes, yes, that one takes over. So if you have both of the articles there and the contingent one fails, at any point in the process, it just goes away. It's like it never existed in the first place.
But if the override passes at the town meeting and at the election,
Then that one takes over. That one
That one-
becomes the
you can
dominating.
pass the two budgets. I don't know if you can do that.
So like you say, there's a contingency, if then,
Okay.
this happens.
But does it make more sense to pass the budget with the cuts first? So then when you're starting off the start of the year, that's the budget you're working under. Because you don't want to be already spending money that you're going to have to cut back. I think you go with the budget cuts to begin with, have the election, have the vote on the override. If the override passes, then go back into a special and then refund back in.
What have other
Budget.
towns done?
I don't
I feel
know.
like we're trying to reinvent the wheel here.
I can
What
find out.
works? If someone's having an override in the town next door, how did they do it and why don't we just?
Well, last
Well,
year,
my experience is that they would have, if the override passed, they came back and adjusted the budgets with another meeting.
the last override that I remember from the floor was $98,000 to fully fund the school. And based on that, the budget, that was what the budget was. So the budget was passed as part of the discussion. I think it was a second amendment within the amendment. It passed, it failed at election, and then after the election, the budget cuts came in. Versus starting with the budget cuts in the beginning, so you know what you're dealing with. And if it doesn't pass, if 2.5 doesn't pass, you don't have to go back and retrace back with whatever, 60 days, 30 days of budget that was overfunded.
I have a solution maybe to resolve this. If you could call DOR, I'm sure they have experience in this. And Vicki and you talk to DOR and find out what other towns, because they're there to augment what we have to do.
When do we have to
Because
vote?
otherwise, you're going to come in as an enforcer and tell us how to do it.
7 days?
Posting.
We still have one more meeting, right? No?
You need to post it after tonight.
Yeah, we have to send a warrant.
We only have to post it 7 days ahead of time.
Right, but if you meet next week, it's gonna be less than 7 days. So the concept was to finalize everything tonight so you could post it tomorrow.
I mean,
You can always vote on it contingent upon amending X, Y, or Z based on council's
Or
comments.
we could post another meeting.
Council didn't have any commentary on the fact that both of those budget articles were there when I got it back from council today.
If you
So-
vote, oh, sorry.
And the only thing that she had, Pat, what's her last name?
Cantor.
Cantor. The only thing she had recommended was actually switching the articles back to the original order, which was putting the FY15 budget first and doing the Prop 2.5 second.
Just like
That's
Robert
what
said.
you're
Yeah,
suggesting.
that's what I'm suggesting based on my research. People would like to see the numbers, see how hard you've worked on the budget before they're asked to increase what.
I guess that makes sense.
Any discussion from the board?
Is it possible to have, before the annual town meeting, a half-hour information session?
Yes,
That would be ideal, if we're going to invite people
we're
there.
having one Thursday at 6:30 here.
Right.
And certainly, as we've had in the past, can have it before. The concept is to have it in another section of the room, so the setting up doesn't interfere with the meeting. So
Just
it could
keep
be,
it fresh in their memories, go from this to the next vote,
So you can't give a presentation during the meeting? You
Well,
can't,
someone has to
like,
present the article, so they can talk about it.
And have it
Chief
before the-
Silvernail's gonna stand up and talk about, he's gonna defend his
yeah.
article, and I think it's fair to have finance and the town administrator to defend the article for the.
At
for the
what point do
budget,
they defend the article?
When it's brought to the floor.
So when Article 2 comes up, if someone wanted to present something, that would be the time to do
when a
it.
motion is made on the article and the question is divided on the budget, each section is discussed and voted on. Then we go to the next section of the budget, that's discussed fully, then voted on. And when it's all done, all the sections of the budget are finalized and voting, there's no need to vote again on all the sections. And then we go into the 2.5% override
So
article.
we do the same thing we just did here.
During the meeting?
Town-
Okay, that's all I want to know.
So,
Francine Fishman. If you presented the FY15 budget at the $14 million level as one article, and then presented the difference amount of $1 billion or whatever change as the next article with the explanation that goes along with it, and then have a special meeting where you present that. If it passes, then you present the new budget. That way, everybody kind of leaves the meeting knowing what work they have to do before the next special meeting to produce the final budget. Does that make any sense?
No, we'll just vote on something.
Pardon?
We'll end up voting on something, either the FY, the $14 million or the $15 million with 2.5 override.
So
I guess I'm confused. If you vote on, if you put the FY15 budget in at the 14 million with all the crazy cuts, and that's passed, and then you move on to the 2.5, and that passes, does the first one just go away?
Well, you need an election.
In the election to
And as long as the election passes, then the first one just goes away, you don't have to do anything different?
You're on the road for your second budget, your 2.5%.
Okay, that's right.
Could you clarify that too tomorrow?
I can clarify some more, yes.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody?
I'd like to make one comment. You know, last week I wasn't here, I was ill, and I'm sorry I didn't attend, but I watched it on television. And first of all, you can't see the numbers, but you guys were great.
Television?
Yeah, you can't read them. And so people that are out in the audience are listening, I'm sure, but there's so many numbers coming at them. And one of the things that might help with an override, and obviously we need one, and I hate to raise anybody's taxes, but I think really getting this tight and saying, okay, these are how many officers we're not going to have, or this is to maybe 5 points, because it's overwhelming for the whole, you know, all these numbers. And to publicize it in the newspaper, to put it, you know, you've done such a wonderful job, which is why I think we had so many people at this election. You helped, thank you. But I mean, I'm just saying, just clarify it, get it really tight so that people understand exactly what we're going to lose.
We're working with fact sheets with each of the departments, and they're turning those in on Thursday. So we'll have a better idea of more specific bullet points, as Jackie puts it, as to what's happening with as a result of the FY15 budget and what can be restored as a result of the Prop 2.5.
Can that be condensed to one report versus
we can-
several different pages going around?
Yeah, we can see what we can do. I think they'll be utilized, we can utilize them in different ways, but it would be nice to have all the different pieces of information to be able to have as a compilation.
So we couldn't afford a postcard, could we?
No, we have to figure out what the fiscal budget.
I know.
We have to figure out what our regulations are too, as to how involved we can get with the Prop 2.5 campaign, so to speak.
But
So we're
maybe-
working on that as we.
Maybe an article, maybe the Republican or the Gazette will do something, and we can get the numbers in that way.
Rebecca from the Gazette and Mary from the Republican on Mass Lives Mass Lives News information are both awaiting my call on Thursday for further information on our Prop 2.5.
Right.
What they had been waiting for and what we had discussed when I've seen them both a couple occasions now is that I told them that we were waiting to make sure that we had a united front, and we had a united message to share. Until we did so, we wanted to wait because we wanted to make sure we had one piece of information to pass on. And we wanted to have a united piece of information. We're also going to Robert's informal session on Thursday night, so we'll have more information to share. That's being broadcast, I believe.
Yes.
So people at home will have it. Once we finish with the broadcast, we'll post it on Facebook so people can get the information that way. The Facebook page links to the Twitter page, which links to the home page, so people can get the information on many different facets. I'll get the word right correctly at some point. Facets. Well, I'm spelling in my head and not pronouncing it correctly, so.
Can we use town property to put up promotional?
I don't know. I'm still working on it. The easiest way to get to the answer, I thought, was to actually talk to towns who have done this recently, because they kind of would have the best chance of looking into the regs most recently. So Arlington, Shrewsbury. Arlington actually has a bunch of information they're sending me in the morning. Shrewsbury, I didn't get a chance to call yet today, but I will. And then I'm not sure if,
Southampton, they just did one last year or before. And I think they're local, they
Yeah.
know the rules around, here pretty good, and I think they're gonna be very helpful.
I'll give them a call as well. I was holding off on them though, only because theirs was focused on the educational piece alone, as opposed to a lot of the other towns
A lot
had
of the questions you
more
have,
information.
Where to put them, how to organize.
Yeah, they
it,
should
what
be able to
do.
answer some of those.
I really don't think you can spend any municipal money on this.
I think you're right.
I mean, and people can't work on town time promoting this either, so, it's gotta be, very basic information you can get when we're sitting here, what the facts are, that's it.
Any other questions from the audience, comments? All right, is that everything, Heather?
The next thing we need to do is the articles, if there's no more questions on the budget. And just to let you know, the articles have changed a little bit. This has been through town council once at this point. There's a couple more things that I have questions on that I'd like to follow up with Pat on. I was talking to Liz earlier, if it's possible, after we go through all these, if we can possibly have this approved pending further legal approval.
So we already talked about,
Are we switching 2 and 3?
yeah, why don't we do we have a motion to do that?
I make a motion to switch Articles 2 and 3 on the annual town meeting warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, we've gone through all these before. Are there any other changes?
Yes, okay, so if we flip through, let's see, and I apologize to those in the audience, they don't have a copy of this, it's like a 17-page document. Budget just doesn't permit copies. If you get down to, let's see, the bylaws are still the same. You get down to Article number 10, the report of the Community Preservation Committee. This article has totally changed. It used to be a piece for every single thing that was going to be transferred over. The reason this changed is because apparently town council has been redoing the formatting of this article itself in all of their communities that they work with, and they want to have it worded differently. Not only do they want to have it worded differently, but it appears they want to combine all the different articles into one article. I don't know how I feel about this one, but it's town council's piece that did this. I didn't do this, Pat Cantor did. So I will further work with Pat Cantor and figure out what we need to do with these, but these are all the pieces of this one article.
Did they give a reason why they did it?
She said they just changed the formatting of it recently.
Who's they?
I mean town council.
Did the state change it, or are you saying the council? The
Town council has recently advised all the communities to change the formatting of the language, because I had copied our language from last year verbatim into what we had used. The only other thing you'll see on here that's different is the very last one at the very bottom. It says, estimated revenues from undesignated reserve, $40,000 to the public safety complex account. Now, that is still pending approval. Charlie is meeting with the CPA, I believe, tomorrow. So provided that they get approval, that was the best guess. But again, that's one of those things that if we can get, I don't know, however the vote would want to go to have it, so it's pending.
We would have to amend it from the floor, but part of it gets dropped out.
Okay.
So it'll be amended on the floor. CPA says, no, when it gets dropped out. So the rest of these could pass. So I just want to read what they are, just for people who are listening.
Do you want to give people a minute to clear?
There's people that's still in the audience at home that would love to hear.
Get down here. You're doing such a great job, Bill.
All right, so,
Watch mine.
Charlie, sit down. So this new format for Community Preservation Committee has put everything under one article, so it's concerned that if someone's against one part of it, some good stuff that they may want to pass, so it may get kind of sticky, but we're looking at it. So what's in this right now is $10,000 for Edwards Public Library for preservation of documents, historical documents. Also, $1,500 for the Veterans Grave Officer for restoration of Revolutionary War and Civil War veterans monuments. Another historical aspect is $5,000 for the Veterans Grave Officer for the purchase of some 10 flat markers for veterans' graves. I know the historical part is Chronic Park, and $12,700 being used for the Southampton Youth Association for renovations of the small ball field that's over in Chronic Park. Something about the backstop has to be fixed. I think it's leaning to one side. Open space, $5,000 from the Conservation Commission for improvements of the Whitmore Conservation Area. $2,500 for the Conservation Commission for a hiking map of Wolf Hill and Zipta conservation areas to buy trail signs for Wolf Hill. $10,000 from the undesignated reserve operating expenses for the CPA, which is the early thing to do. And the last bit that Heather just spoke of for the safety complex. But those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts of Article 10 that are currently in there from the CPA. Yes, Robert.
Robert Floyd, I will divide that question if it's all in one article. There's just too many interests, too many items to go yea or nay all in one vote. And historically, it's worked having them separate. So if it is one article, I will divide it at the meeting.
Okay. Article 11 and 12, 13, and 14, I think are the
Okay.
same.
You want me to skip down to the next one that changed?
Yeah.
All right, let's see, actually, number 13 is new.
Oh,
This was in last year's. It's transfer ambulance fee account, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $10,000 to fund the police department wages for EMS ambulance-related expenses. If you have any questions, I believe the chief's still here on this article. Okay, it's something we do every year. Apparently, our police are also trained to be first responders, so we give them EMTs. So we give
They
them.
still have the valid licenses and whatnot? They still have valid EMT licenses?
What are you saying? They don't have them?
They all, I'm saying they still do, right? They-
Oh, yes.
They still have valid
Yes, they
EMT
do.
licenses? Okay, very good.
In fact, we've added another one.
Okay.
So that's a different article from last week. We didn't realize it wasn't in there. It was an oversight. So we added that. And then if you go down to page 7, you'll see operating appropriations. We changed something by adding something here, and we took one out of capital appropriations. This was something I alluded to earlier when we were talking about the police department's budget. So the police department originally had a capital item for $33,000 for a police cruiser. We discussed with the police chief for quite a while about it, and as he advocated last week, he's in favor of, if he has to make a decision between two things, items or personnel, he's going to opt to keep personnel. So that was his decision when we did the budget. And he said, I'd really like to keep the personnel. Let's get rid of the cruiser. Can we do this instead? So instead of doing $33,000 transfer for a police cruiser this year, what he has to do is he has to put an article on the warrant to appropriate $33,000 from the operating stabilization fund to the police wage account to recover some of the money that was taken out as a result of the cuts. So instead of $33,000 going into as a police cruiser, it'd be $33,000 going back into the police wages to help recover. Now he understands this is a possibility that it may not pass, and if it doesn't pass, he's going to be stuck with even lower wages for the police department than he already has.
So you cut it looks like 80,000 up for wages as it is now, right?
Well, you're looking at wish list versus already cut.
Like 70,000 or so will cut, 80 or 70,000 cut, and then, so this will come back, so it'll still be about $50,000.
His entire budget took about a $60,000 hit after the already 2% cuts.
62.
62.
$533.19, right?
We didn't get to coins.
Okay.
I don't like coins, we round up. So you see that article now in operating stabilization fund, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $33,000 to the police department wages from the operating stabilization fund, and you no longer see a police cruiser in the capital lines.
But just so I'm clear, because I don't know if you got your question answered, in the line item for wages, there's a $52,000 cut. So this will go back in, so it will be,
Sounds vibrating.
Yeah, apparently, huh? This will be back in there, so there'll only be a cut of roughly 20,000.
30, I think he was,
Oh, it's 52 here, Chief, according to what the figure she has, and 33 here.
And so there's a total of 62,000, so this would put 33,000 back into wages.
I'm going from here where it says 52, so, but I guess the real question is 33 will go back into that difference.
Yeah.
So there'll be a minimal amount, and if it doesn't, the worst would be the 52 or 62. It wouldn't exacerbate that.
Right, and if that doesn't happen, then we'll have no choice but to let a police officer off. We're already going to be cutting back on patrols, cutting back on shift coverages, even with what we have, even with transferring that 33 in there. That's simply to prevent laying the police officer off.
I just want to make sure it wasn't layered on top of the cut already. Okay.
That was another example of working together with some of the departments to maximize the potential of our budget and what we need to do with the funds, and having the departments on board. That's all I have, I believe, for the amendments.
That's all the changes?
Yes, sir.
All right, so did we take a vote on this last time or not?
We took a vote on just moving things around last time.
All right, I'll take a motion to approve the articles for this year's annual town meeting.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we'd like to have this posted.
Now, here's a question for you. Does this include the budget or not include the budget, and do you need to vote on the budget separately?
Well, let's vote on the budget separately then. Just to
I don't know
cover
the
it.
answer to the question.
I don't either, so let's vote on both of them.
Usually includes the budget, because.
Robert believes it includes the budget because it's part of the warrant.
Yeah, it's article, it'll be article, the budget that we're looking at is budget 15, is that will be article 2.
So it would be FY15 and the FY15 Prop 2.5 budget,
Right.
both of them.
So we'll get this posted tomorrow,
We will run it through town council for those few questions.
and when will the constables post this?
As soon as I bring it to the constable.
Dave, when would you like this handed to you?
We have 7 days, you know, so I mean, I think that's anytime up to next Monday at the latest.
What's a convenient time for you?
Sooner the better.
So you'll get this directly to the chief.
Say what?
Thank you. Yes.
Is it 6 o'clock or 6:30 for your information meeting?
6:30.
6:30, thanks. Just want to check.
So I think the next thing is,
We have to sign that, don't we?
Yeah, you can always.
we have a copy of that.
Oh, no, I didn't write on the last page.
I got one here too. How many you want?
Do you have a clean copy?
Yeah, how many signed copies you want?
Just one, but do you need to post, you just need one signed
I
copy?
just need the one with the original signatures on it.
You just have to change the first page with the 2 articles up this way. All right, so there's a PCF, but these guys are here, so when we just talk to these guys here, because they're here.
Yes.
Okay. Charlie, you're up.
Okay, the good news is the hearing on May 1st relative to Maple Street went very smoothly, and it appears that they'll take their final vote May 22nd, I believe. And then they're going to record it at the Registry of Deeds, and Maple Street underneath this town hall will no longer exist.
That's positive.
And I will check booking page with the Registry of Deeds at the beginning of June to make sure that actually happened. That said, the other part of the report from Koppelman Page was that we had to authenticate the fact that the selectmen had control of this building and the fire station. Through the town clerk's office, we were able to find the town meeting votes that made that happen. A little curiosity, one of the town meeting votes in 1946, if memory serves, was to tear down the present fire station.
That's very interesting.
The schoolhouse,
All right,
which
so,
is the present fire station.
so when was that voted on?
It was 1946.
It was the binding vote
It was a binding vote of the town, and then 2 years later, they changed their mind and decided to make it the fire station.
Well, they're saving money, being good Yankees.
Yeah.
So we've had a long history with that building of it coming and going.
Coming and going, really going.
In 2000, the town voted to take this building and transfer it from the school department to the Board of Selectmen. So out of the 3 issues the town attorney brought up, the Maple Street one is on the path to be cleared up. The building issues appear to be that we have documentation. The only thing left out there is the title search requirements that they were suggesting. What I'd like to do with that whole piece is wait until June, after town meeting, everything else. This committee, your board, get together, we re-review what Copeland Page has and decide what we're gonna do for the little piece that's there.
Okay.
You know, but we're getting this cleaned up. It is. The articles for town meeting, as you know, we're going to the Preservation Commission tomorrow night to see if there's some possibilities there. We reviewed the statute relative to that, and they include historical districts in that, which the fire station in that area is a historical district. I don't know how it's going to be viewed, but I'm optimistic that there might be funding out of them to take and do the feasibility study. Bear in mind that if we don't do the feasibility study, we're pretty much stagnant, dead. We can't move any further with this thing until we eventually get a feasibility study
You
done.
meeting with CPA tomorrow? What time?
5:30.
I heard there was a select board member that was interested to be a more active part of your committee.
She made a statement about the fact that we were a fun group. That seemed to be harassing each other at great limits.
Would you accept that person into your coven?
I don't know if that person would fit well with that group.
So Jack, would you like?
We're willing to give it a shot, aren't we?
Yeah, I would be honored.
Do we have a motion to appoint Jackie?
I would make a motion to appoint Jackie to the
Public safety?
Public Safety Complex Committee.
Do you have a second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Shouldn't we have a full vote?
We're not in charge of nothing. They're our bosses. Couldn't figure that out yet.
We're all yours, Jackie. Good luck. Any other issues, Joe?
The other articles pertain to the $5,000 for the survey and appraisal.
Oh, yeah.
We have to do that. As simple as that. We're neck deep into the perk tests and all the rest of that.
Okay.
So we gotta get that done.
Now, is he getting his property appraised from his standpoint? Is he hiring his own appraiser?
My understanding is he's looking for just our appraisal.
Okay.
He's keeping us extremely low key.
Okay.
We are looking at backland. I gave Heather a sketch of the map, so if you want to see it, she actually has it.
Okay.
It's about 0.6 of an acre. So where that's going to come, I don't know, for the appraisal and stuff, but that gives you an idea.
There's no frontage though.
No frontage at all.
Okay.
And there's sufficient land left that he has frontage for another building lot.
All right, so it may work out to his favor.
Yeah, because we've gone through his attorneys with that relative to the land and that.
And then you don't have to approve it. Really.
So, at this point in time, a lot's going to depend on what happens tomorrow night. And that'll set the tone for our town meeting.
What are the articles that we have on there? How do they read?
From left to right.
Doesn't matter.
There's,
The figures.
there you go.
There's one for $5,000, and then there is one for $40,000. The $40,000 one pertains to the CPA. The $5,000 one, I believe, comes from capital.
And we'll see what happens tomorrow.
For the purpose of, I believe it's,
Yeah.
Appraisal, 5,000 for the appraisal.
It's the appraisal and the survey. Okay, you have to do the survey, you've got to do a description for a deed.
Could you please reiterate the reason why we need a new complex because of the safety issues, and not just the fact about the equipment, but also the human factor of how unhealthy that building is.
Both structures are presently housing people that could be put in jeopardy because of the degradation and condition of the buildings. I can't more simplify it than that.
Good catchphrase,
You gotta do better for a better catchphrase. This was renovate or detonate. So you gotta come up with a
This
better
was
one.
voted on in 1946 to be torn down by the town.
Now, you decide back there if you want.
But 2 years later, we saw the value.
May I keep these?
That's all you
You
want.
want these back?
No, I can get another one.
She has-
They got more?
Yeah, she'll give me one.
They got
It's-
more to print another one out.
I don't know what.
I mean, the reality of this is, even though we're talking about feasibility studies and stuff, we're still a number of years off before you actually have the facilities.
Takes a long time.
This is not, we do the feasibility study this year, and next year, we turn the key and walk in.
Yeah, but all the parts are coming together. I mean, it's the Maple Street stuff, the deed stuff needed to be done.
Yeah.
That was for you guys.
Yeah. But that was for the town, and that was sort of found along the way.
That's true.
And we started looking at problems.
It was the problems we ran into.
Right.
But I really feel that we want a clean deed to the whole place,
Right.
so that when you do apply for a grant, that it is done.
Yes.
So nobody can dig anything up and say, hey, you can't do this because. And it takes 2 years to get it done. Now, we've been at this, what, 3 years?
3 years now,
So,
this committee's been functioning. And we started off originally going through all the town properties and everything else, trying to get some idea of what we needed and where we could put it. The reality of this is, it is moving, but if you were to look week to week, you wouldn't see anything. But if you look every 6 months, you can see a lot of progress has been made. And to be quite candid, we've been doing this on the cheap.
We gotta tell you, going back to the beginning, John Kernan did a lot.
yes,
He did.
Yeah, he did a lot.
Yep.
He was chair.
He's missed.
Yeah.
You were chair, but he was like, he was clerk.
He was clerk.
He was clerk.
Now another clerk.
No, begins with a J.
I was close.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Good luck tomorrow night.
Okay.
All right. Heather, moving on.
Email me the articles when you get them.
Do you have a PCF for Lawrence County?
I think I can save you $2,000.
Yeah, what you got there?
Where's Hampshire County Radio? Call tomorrow. We voted to cut that in half.
Larry does not wish to be
Oh, it's
withdrawn.
Yeah, so call,
PCF is to reduce his pay,
I lost my train of
$100 stipend for that
Call
title.
the company.
So
I think
the
yours is
reduction in
23.
pay from 1930 to 1835.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
You have a second?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Anything else you need to take votes or?
We need to go into executive session.
All right.
It's an item on your agenda, well, I don't know if there's any open,
Open time for the public, George, Robert?
Robert Floyd, town moderator, just reporting on my activities today. The warrant was not posted for the town election, similar to 2007. Peter Cocott is validating the election in Boston with legislation, which means the election itself is invalid. Working with Heather today, Kopelman and Page, they were able to present to me, because I needed reassurance, there's a difference between an election being invalid and the election results being valid, deemed valid until overturned, if and only if by a court of law. That being explained to me, that being shown case study, I then went ahead and swore in the town clerk, who was then free to swear everybody else in. So the validation of the election itself will take up to 3 months, Peter Cocott predicts, and the governor will validate it. And what Kopelman and Page also said is they see no reason
why it will not be validated. So it's a matter of time, so.
Very good.
One of the cases they cited, by the way, was from the city of Haverhill.
City here. Tell us, okay.
No,
All
I haven't read the case yet, though, but I will.
Coming back into open part. George, do you have any questions? All right, thank you for coming up. Appreciate it. So we'll go into executive session, but we will not be coming back into open.
Do you want to read the reason?
We'll get there. I just want to, if you can hold on. So, if you.
In session before we go out.
Executive session, Mass General Law 38, Section 21, Number 1, for medical issues for an employee. I need a roll call vote to go into executive session, starting on the left-hand side. John Martin says, John Martin, aye.
Say Martin, aye.
Martin, aye.
Sears, aye.
McDougal, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Holly, aye.
And we will not be coming back into open session. Okay?